Well, if you like heat, then this is your time of year because we get lots of it, folks. The humidity is sky high and is going to remain high throughout much of the week. And it seems as though you get into July and that's when the temperature really gets turned up in this part of the world. But when it comes to weather, folks, things could be much worse. Look at what's happening in Texas. My gosh. The desperate search continues for survivors in the aftermath of Friday's deadly flash floods. Officials say at least 82 people have been confirmed dead. 82 dead. Noting that number is expected to rise, U.S. President Donald Trump signed a major disaster declaration on Sunday for the area hardest hit by flooding, saying that he will likely visit the area later this week. Meantime, residents are recounting harrowing escapes from rapidly rising floodwaters, so things could always be worse for sure. And Mother Nature is the ultimate power, the ultimate force on this earth, that's for sure. And she reminds us of it from time to time, in sometimes dramatic and tragic ways, for sure. Thanks to Vanessa Van Ness on the other side of the glass. The control board's doing a fine job as always. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening, everybody. We appreciate it very much. We will open the phone lines between 11 and 12 today. And I'm sure that some of you want to talk about or carry on discussing what we get into with our councillors here in just a couple of moments. And we'll have our councillors on the hot seat. I will mention first off to all the Blue Jay fans out there, you're riding high right now with a 3-game lead atop the AL East and a 8-game winning streak, including a recent sweep of the New York Yankees at home. And man, oh man, they're playing well, and looks like they could continue on their winning ways, playing the AL worst Chicago White Sox this week as we head to the All-Star break. And the All-Star break is, of course, kind of marks mid-season, and lots of baseball to play yet, but the Blue Jays certainly look good. Speaking of sports, later in the show today, we will talk local sports between 12:30 and 1 with Ken Bagnell, CEO of Canadian Sport Institute Atlantic. Ken joins us here in studio once a month, and because it's good to shine a focus and a light on our athletes, and we've got a lot of athletes to be proud of, that's for sure, including a couple reigning Olympic athletes, including Kate Vincent in rowing and canoeing rather, and Connor Fitzpatrick, two-time Olympian, both canoe out of Lake Veinotte, of course. We all know Lake Veinotte is renowned for its canoeing prowess, and rightfully so. So look forward to chatting with Ken Bagnell, and he'll bring along two guests later in the show. And as mentioned, hope to hear from many of you when we open the phone lines in about an hour's time. And speaking of phone lines, we will open our phone lines because we have our councillors on the hot seat. Cathy Deagle Gammon, District 1, Waverley, Fall River, Musquodoboit Valley. Cathy, welcome to the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Absolutely. And Janet Steele, District 12, Timberlea, Beechville, Clayton Park, Wedgewood. Janet, welcome.
Good morning.
Can you turn that mic so that it's facing your mouth? There you go.
Good morning, everyone.
See Vanessa over there going, get the mic straightened out. We want to be able to hear you. Because what you have to say is important as a counselor, of course.
I hope so, yes.
All right. So, Janet, speaking of what you want to say, anything you want to pass along to listeners or constituents before we get into this?
No, I'm really happy to hear from residents by email or by phone. And when you're emailing me, if you are from District 12, please let me know, because I get lots of emails, and sometimes people are advocating for issues, and it's great if I know you're in my district, because I want to represent your interests.
Right on. Okay. Cathy, how about you?
Well, actually, I wanted to share a great congratulations to the Camp Courage Society that over the last week, they had about 25 young women have an experience of learning to be what it's like to be a firefighter, a police person in the Coast Guard, or a paramedic. And this is all done by volunteers. And all of the professionals also volunteer all of their time over a course of 7 days. Mm-hmm. And the graduation was yesterday. So the inspiration behind Camp Courage is Andrea Sperencia. And she's just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. And so to go and listen to young girls at the graduation say, I will be a police person, I will be a paramedic, I will be, instead of I think, I might, or I want, to say that that's exactly what they know that they want to do after having this experience. I think that's pretty incredible, especially to see women in some, at one time known to be non-traditional roles. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, breaking down barriers, it's still, although a lot of work's been done, a lot more needs to be done, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the other shout out was to, yesterday there was a beautiful book launch in Grand Lake, Oakfield, the history of Grand Lake Oakfield. There was a book that was launched yesterday by Louise Brooking McDowell and Jerry Donovan. I'm not pronouncing his last name correctly.
Okay.
So they've worked for years of compiling this book on the history of Grand Lake and Oakfield, and it's a really, really nice read.
Excellent. And, of course, council meets tomorrow, and you guys meet throughout the Sunday, or throughout the summer, correct?
We do. There is a bit of a break. I think there's about 2 weeks there that we don't have any formal meetings booked.
Right.
But should anything come up, the administrative order does allow for us to have special meetings.
But for the most part, you guys are not like your provincial counterparts or your federal counterparts, certainly with a large amount of time away from governing.
No, we are not.
Yeah,
and
as
Councillor Steele says, it's a great time to be in our community with our residents too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's lots of summer festivals and picnics, and it's great to get out and hear what people are thinking about. And I'll just build on Councillor Deagle Gammon's comments about Camp Courage. I was very pleased to be part of the launch of their week-long session, and we had a bit of an Ask Me Anything session with the 3 councillors that were there, and they were a tough crew. They asked us lots of important questions about key issues in HRM and kept us on our toes. So I think they are going to be future leaders.
Awesome stuff. Okay, if you'd like to chat with one or both the councillors, give us a call at 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. A couple of things. Again, if you're on hold, stick right there. We'll certainly get to you in momentarily. But I wanted to ask both of you your opinion on the strong mayor debate, which is going on. This was in the Chronicle Herald this morning. Sam Austin talking about the strong mayor powers, saying if it happens, he wants to have a say and would like to be consulted and feels as though that this move would certainly be worthy of being consulted. What are your thoughts on this?
So, wow, it's such an interesting topic because we don't know what the province may or may not write into strong mayor powers.
Right.
So there's a lot of speculation about what it is and what it isn't. And I've kind of stayed away from responding to some of the questions about strong mayor powers and what I think about it, because if you don't know what it is that they're planning, it's difficult to know. The one thing I do believe is that if strong mayor powers were part of the election in 2020, then I do believe, 2024, sorry.
Right.
Well, even in 2020, I guess.
Sure.
But if that was on the books, I think then it might be a consideration that people would take, that they would consider when they were making their vote, either for their councillor or for mayor. And so in the absence, if it coming in the middle, I do believe that is a bit concerning for some people. And the other thing, a lot of the stuff that I read, people are saying, weak mayor, strong mayor. It's not about the individual that it is in the position. Weak mayor powers, as it stands, is about a mayor having one vote. Strong mayor powers is about more power given to the mayor. So I would like to see a little bit of a distance between making it about a person opposed to making it about a method of governance.
Janet?
Okay, well, I have a slightly different position than Councillor Deagle Gammon. I think it's really about democracy. We had an election in October of 2024. We elected 16 councillors and a mayor, each with one vote. So first off, we should continue with the governance model that was elected. Secondly, I do just want to agree with Councillor Deagle Gammon on this. This is not about Mayor Fillmore and whether he should be given strong mayor power. I just disagree with the concept of strong mayor power. I don't know what Premier Houston would do with strong if he were to bring it in. But the models that exist in other places like Ontario, for example, are that the mayor can have his motion approved with a 1/3 vote. So that effectively mutes the voices of council or some of the council that don't vote with the mayor. I think we have a diverse and representative council, and they represent the wide diversity of views right across HRM. And so I don't want to see those views muted. The other thing I believe, and I agree with the motion proposed by Councillor Austin, of course I'm going to listen to the debate for sure, but I do believe in this consultative world that we operate in HRM. It would be excellent if there were some consultation with the residents of Nova Scotia, if they're intending to bring the power in across all municipalities in the province, or if it's just HRM, to consult with the residents of HRM. We are the most consultative level of government. We hold so many public hearings. I mean, our budget discussion was a case in point, for example. We had many days where groups came in and spoke to us, and sometimes they spoke to us about issues that were at the level of other levels of government, because those fora don't exist. So I don't believe strong mayor power for now. If the province, and the province already has the authority to impose what they want. So on HRM, and they're doing it with minimum planning regulations, for example. What they've done is they've said, you don't require parking. You don't require a certain bedroom mix now in apartment buildings. You don't require a certain amount of commercial space. They can bring that in. They brought in special planning areas as well. So the province has the authority to do what they want. They don't need to. Some people have suggested, and I wouldn't suggest this because we have a very well qualified mayor, but some people have suggested they want to bring it in so they can dictate to the mayor what to do. I hope that would not be the case, and I would be very surprised. It would take away from the integrity of the mayor.
Well, Sean Cleary said that directly to me, right, in an interview, that he felt that might be that would be a concern of his, that the province would use the mayor as a bit of a proxy or even a puppet to do their business.
That could be a possibility. I know that we have a mayor that came in with a lot of experience at the municipal level and a lot of experience at the federal level. I'm sure he's able to form his own opinions.
Cathy, do you have concerns about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Short answer, yes.
Yeah.
And again, I guess that goes back to my first point about let's get the right information before we start to, make any determinations. So right now, the way that the motion that Councillor Austin is bringing forward is all about getting the right information and finding out what it is and what it's not. And I think that's the best first place to start.
Okay. All right. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us to chat with our councillors. Again, 902-405-6000. Gloria is giving us a call. Why not kick it off with Gloria? Hi, Gloria.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, you?
Good morning, councillors.
Good morning, Gloria.
Good morning, Gloria.
I'm really going to put you on the hot seat this morning, so be prepared.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about the Audit Finance Committee getting the report from our Auditor General on this terrible, damning report on snow removal. I would think, Cathy, that you, as the chair of that committee, would bring that when you're on the open mic. You talked about that. You would be embarrassed. You'd apologize to the people for what has happened with our snow removal. And that report used to come to full council, not to the audit committee. I have a few questions. When did the rest of the council hear about it? What is the response from both of you? And how did this ever happen when you tell us that you scrutinize these budgets so closely at budget time when you're looking for ways to cut? And anyway, the rest of the councils, I don't know when they heard about it or if they've even read it or if they even are concerned about it. And who is being held accountable for this? I read where the work supervisors, they complete a report every weather event. They're given a blank text box to fill out with no questions. Each time the supervisor is saying, yep, everything was done great. There's no report as to whether residents who complain ever get their complaints answered. And, it's just disgusting. And I thank God every day that I was the councillor who put forward the motion to bring an Auditor General in, because I did it for 3 reasons: looking for efficiencies, working effectively, and economically. And I still feel that way. And my last question, Todd, and I'll let them answer the question, would you, councillors, be willing, and the mayor talked about this in his campaign, of having an external audit done on every department in HRM? Would you be willing to do that with our Auditor General working along with them? And if not, maybe the taxpayers should go to Municipal Affairs and ask the minister to do this.
You want to do that?
Okay.
Okay, Jen, you want to respond?
Gloria, thank you for your question, and I'll let Councillor Deagle Gammon answer a lot of it because she is the chair of our Finance Committee. But I do just want to say that as a councillor, I did read the report very carefully, and it validated a lot of the concerns that I have been hearing from my residents in District 12, particularly those in the Beechville, Lakeside, Timberlea area. I've heard a lot of concerns about winter operations, and I will be requesting that we have a full discussion at council about that winter operations report. From the time I was elected, when snow started until the snow stopped, my residents have been expressing a great deal of dissatisfaction. And so I've been very concerned about the effectiveness and efficiency of our winter operations. And some of the councillors on the Finance and Audit Committee gave me a heads up when that report was coming forward because they knew of some of the issues that the residents in my district had been experiencing. So I'll just mention that. The other point I want to mention is if you look at some of the documents for tomorrow's council meeting, there is some talk about more review of all the business units. So you may see that discussion, you may find that discussion to be of interest. And finally, thank you for bringing in the Auditor General function. I think it plays a critical role. It acts as the voice, really, of our residents to ensure we're being very wise with how we use residents' funds. So thank you very much. And I'll pass the tough questions to the experienced councillor. Thanks, Gloria.
Thank you, Jenny. Experience, well, I don't know. Thank you, Gloria, for all the excellent questions. And, Councillor Steele's right. One of the things that Mayor Savage always compliments you on is the fact that you brought forward the motion to have an AG within the municipal government. So that's great. And because of that, we do get these kinds of reports. So I'll try to answer some of your questions in order. So when did the rest of the council know about the report? I had sent an email to all of the councillors letting them know that report was coming to Audit and Finance so that they knew about it, invited councillors to come and attend the Audit and Finance meeting if there was any questions that they wanted to bring forward about it. One of the things is, Gloria, I remember even one time, I think I remember you saying something like this, but if it wasn't written, it didn't happen. And that's exactly what happened in this report, is that you're right. The kind of documentation that's required to prove that the snow removal is being done well or not well, that documentation is not there. The AG himself in the meeting said this report was not about was the snow clearing done or not being done. The report was around, is the documentation there to prove and show that it is being done in the way that it's supposed to be done. And then the other piece is that there is an action plan that is required. And so they have 3 months to come back to us with an action plan to say, what are they going to do to resolve the issues that were identified? They accepted all of the recommendations of the Auditor General. And so once we see that action plan, I think that's the next space. So we allow them to respond to the recommendations, say how they're going to work with it. And then I think that is the next place, Gloria, where we will have to look to say, is this sufficient or not sufficient? And if council is not ready to accept that, and if they have to go further and look at an external audit, then that would be the next step. And Gloria, if I have to let you know that I was at Ribfest, and somebody the other day when I was at Ribfest doing the judge, they said, say hi to Gloria and thank her for always calling in and the Todd Veinotte show because you always have great questions. So there you go.
Well, thank you, Cathy. You didn't answer one question.
Oh, what did I miss?
Who's being held accountable for all this?
Okay, Gloria, actually, we need a break. You mind holding there, Gloria, so we can get to this?
No, I don't mind at all.
Okay, stick right there. 902-405-6000. We'll be back with our councillors. All right, continuing with our councillors, Cathy Deagle Gammon, Janet Steele here in studio, and we were chatting with Gloria before the break. Gloria, just wanted to give you ample time to follow up on.
I'll try to. The other question nobody answered is how did you miss this at budget time when you're looking to see this is one of the big items on your budget? That's another question. Who are you holding accountable for this? No names.
Okay.
But you have one staff member.
Yes.
And who's responsible for all of this? And then I didn't get an answer whether you would be in favor of an exterior audit of all departments. So I'll let you answer those questions.
Okay. On the external audit, what was your answer?
My answer was on the external audit piece was that we were allowing the staff to come back with their action plan report. And based on what we saw there, then that would be the next opportunity to see if an external audit was needed. I believe that's what I said. And in terms of who's accountable, excuse me, ultimately council is. Right, we're responsible. Council is responsible. We have, as you say, one CAO, but when it's at the end of the day, we are responsible. How did this get past budget? Budget was about the dollar value. It wasn't about looking at the quality, and that's why the AG. That's why we asked the AG to do this report.
Cathy.
And now that we have that, we can now look at that, and it'll be something that will become part of the significant conversation at budget this year.
Cathy, this is about dollar value.
Yes.
They don't know the cost of the in-house snow clearing. That's dollar value.
Yeah, and Gloria, one of the things that was in that report was one of the reasons it's split over so many different departments, and that was a piece of work that is in the action plan that they have to do. They have to bring that in and bring it to us.
Well, if council is accountable and no staff member, then you're certainly not doing your job. And it's time that you paid more attention to what's going on. And I'm not talking about each department bringing forward a report. I'm talking about going out, hiring an external audit team with our Auditor General working for them, not a witch hunt, but look at every department for efficiencies and how we can save money because taxpayers are suffering. So that's what I want to hear council say. And if you're not in favor of that, maybe the taxpayers do go to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and tell him about it and request that he do it.
Okay, response?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. Gloria, one of the motions when we finished our budget discussion was to look at our entire operation, where we can have some efficiencies. So we did have a report that came to council, or is coming to council tomorrow. And there's also some discussion about further review in some areas. So that it's not necessarily an external audit, but there is the possibility of hiring someone external to take a look at the business units. So that will be looked at tomorrow. So it's not the audit, the numbers that you may be looking at, but it could result in that. So we'll stay tuned for that discussion, and thanks for that feedback. And I think as councillors, we recognize there is an affordability crisis out there, and we need to be very, very protective of our residents' dollars. So thank you for raising that and for giving us the opportunity to say how important we feel it is.
Well, not important enough when you look at what the Auditor General found. And I'll let you go. I will be listening tomorrow. But as I said, I think we need an outside auditor to look at everything. And I invite the general public Who didn't hear this report? At one time it came to council. Auditor General stood up in council and everybody heard it. But now it goes to the Audit and Finance Committee. So I invite residents to read that report and think about it, and I'll be listening tomorrow. And I thank you very much, and thank you, Todd.
Okay, Gloria, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. 902-405-6000, that is the way to reach us. For our councillors on the hot seat, we get some people on hold. We get some room for you as well. 902-405-6000. We'll get to other calls when we come back. All right, continuing with our councillors on the hot seat, Cathy Deagle Gammon, Janet Steele here in studio, taking your calls, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Gary's giving us a call. Hello, Gary.
Oh, hi. The councillors. I heard a rumor that Station 13 downtown Dartmouth, it may be closing up again. And I was in that station there, how many times? A lot of bricks outside are falling off. The place needs to be all fixed up. And I was talking to a lot of the firemen that the chief's not going to do nothing to that station. They're talking about tearing it down or close it down. You guys heard anything about that?
Gary, I'm sorry. This is Cathy here. I don't know anything about Station 13, sorry to say, but we could try to find out a little bit about it and get the information to you. If you leave your phone number or an email, I'll try to get that for you.
Yeah, because, I like that station there downtown. They ever closed that. Say they did. It needs a lot of brick.
Does it?
Brick outside. Needs a lot of brick. Needs to be done on the place. And ask, tomorrow you're having your councillor. Ask the chiefs there tomorrow. Ask them they're going to do any brick or they're going to close it down.
Okay, Jen, have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't heard about it, but we'll certainly look into it and get back to you if you give us your email. Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Gary, take care. 902-405-6000. Mike, hello.
Hey, good morning. My question is about bicycle lanes and bus routes, and why are we so eager to spend all this money on bicycle lanes when there's so much work that can go into bus lanes that is more accessible for everyone? Not everyone has a bicycle. And I'll give you a perfect example. My daughter had to turn down a job because she had to start her job. She would have had to start this job that she was offered at 7 a.m, but to take a bus from Spryfield to Bears Lake is pretty much a 2-hour affair. Like, how come there's no route to go from Spryfield to Bears Lake? So why don't we fix up our busing system before we dump all this money into a group of people that doesn't represent the whole HRM? It's not something that everybody can use. And also, before we do that, why don't we get sidewalks in Burnside? Like, there's still a lot of major streets in Burnside where people have to walk down the road or through knee-high grass because there's no sidewalks. And in the wintertime, this is extremely dangerous.
Okay, Mike, thanks for the question. Bus rapid transit and improved transit is a key priority, and we are investing in that. We have a new head of transit who comes with new ideas about improving routes across the city routes. For example, from Spryfield to Bears Lake. I'm actually the councillor that represents the Bears Lake area. I know it's challenging, for example, to get from Clayton Park to Larry UTEC. So our routes do need to be looked at and invested in. In terms of sidewalks are critical for safety, and we have many parts of HRM that don't have sidewalks yet, and we're continuing to look at paved shoulders. In terms of the investments in bike lanes, it's kind of about choice and sometimes affordability as well. There are some residents that want to use bike lanes to get to work. I know a number of residents call me and say, well, I don't see anyone using the road currently for bikes. Well, the answer might be they're not using them because they don't feel safe right now. So, and some of the numbers, you mentioned the costs around bike lanes. Some of the numbers that we've been hearing are actually including all kinds of other features that have been integrated, including improved sidewalks, improved intersections, in place-making spaces for people to relax. All those things are included in the cost for bike lanes. But I agree with you. We do really need to improve our transit system. We need to have more dedicated bus lanes, which will, speed up transit. We also need more sidewalks. There's many communities without sidewalks, and I know I'm a strong advocate for that. I recently brought forward a motion to include a sidewalk around where a new school is being invested in, where a new school is being opened in my district. So we really need to invest in this. In terms of the bike lanes, it's about providing that affordable option as well as transit. And some of the bike lanes are used for people who have mobility concerns as well, which improves the safety for all. So safety for me is one of the priorities I campaigned on, safety for vulnerable road users and improved, rapid and reliable transit that connects people to where they need to go and just not to the downtown, core.
Okay, Cathy.
My next question would be, I guess, bike lanes. What about tax dollars? Like, why should someone in David Hensby's area have to pay for bike lanes in Halifax? Like, when people say, "Oh, well, you have a rec center in your area, and everybody has a rec center," when it comes to bike lanes, that's in the downtown or the Halifax core. Why should people on the outskirts have to pay for that?
Hey, Cathy?
That's something that they're never going to use.
I'll let Cathy take that one.
A bike in their truck.
Okay, Cathy, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for the questions. Excuse me. It's interesting. I support a rural district, and I'm just on the other side of Hensby's. And there are people in my district that actually support bike lanes and that they would wish to be able to cycle from rural to downtown. There are some others that say exactly what you've said. Why should we pay for bike lanes for what we're never going to use? But it's the same thing about paying for the bridges, and you only use them not every day, but once a week or once a month. And goes back to that old question about amalgamation, really, more than it says anything, because now we've got rural, suburban, and urban. So it's interesting. What bothers me the most about the most recent conversations is that we're pitting travelers against each other. It feels like, people in cars, people on cycles, people who walk, people who use the bus, and it feels like everybody is, against each other. You're either for it or you're against it. And it would be so nice if we could figure out how we could make things a little bit more equitable. And I think that's some of the things that, I agree with Councillor Steele on, is that we have to look at all of the modes of transportation and how to make a city of future that is safe for everybody. And some of those options cost more than others, absolutely. That's the way that it is in some ways. And some of those options have other orders of government supporting them and some do not.
Mike, what's your response to that?
I agree somewhat. Like when you say, well, bridges and stuff like that, but everybody has bridges in their community and everyone has rec centers in their community.
No, they don't.
So I agree. Pardon?
So I could tell you that not every community has a rec center in HRM. Not everyone does.
Pretty much, if not, there's one very close to them that they can use, but no one's going to throw a bicycle into their car so they can go into the city and use $100 million bike lanes just because.
So
if I want to, I want to chuck my. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's one of those things that when you go to the extremes, and I know that this is an extreme, but there are some people that I know that do have their bike on the back of the car. They come to the outside of the core and they cycle in, and that's a way that they actually save on parking. And a lot of those people are people who work in the medical professions, to be honest, and at the hospitals. So I do know that there are some people that do that. They are the minority, though, Mike, and I completely agree that's not the majority at all. So
and it's not an option for everybody. Like at least
absolutely,
transit,
it's not.
If we put the money, if you put the money in the transit, that's an option for everyone. Even in a wheelchair, you can still ride a bus.
Yes,
but
bicycle.
The
some
transit,
people can't ride bicycle. Some people can't afford a bicycle.
Okay, all right.
But the transit boundary does not go all through HRM. So, for example, in Fall River, we don't have a bus.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's his point.
Yep, exactly. That's what I mean. So we need to do everything. We need to figure out how to make the bus system more accessible, how to make cycling more accessible, how to make all of those other modes of transportation.
Okay, listen, Mike, listen, we're going to move on. Thanks for the call. Take care. 902-456-6000. Jeff, hello.
Good morning to you and your guest.
Hi, sure.
I have a mere suggestion that I think has been overlooked, and that is, as a driver and occasionally a crosswalker, these two issues to me are of concern. I would like to see a consistency in crosswalk safety, and I find the only ones which are effective for safety, especially for those who are addicted to the cell phone and just walk out, are the ones with the yellow amber lights, which drivers who may not be attentive also, you can't help but miss the yellow amber. And in regard to the exaggerated multiplying speed bumps, I would sincerely like to see them painted yellow, because when we get inches of snow, you don't see them. And if you have a low car, you scrape the bottom. And who's going to pay for the damage? I will leave you with that, and thank you for your time.
Okay, all right. Janet, go ahead.
Thanks for those comments, Jeff. I totally agree with you. Those rectangular rapid flashing beacons are really important at crosswalks, and they really enhance safety. And good comment on painting the speed bumps yellow. I have a speed bump in my district that's not painted at all right now, and I'm getting lots of comments. So the idea of painting it yellow is a great one. Thanks for that comment. We do need to endeavor to do whatever we can to support those residents that are have a healthy lifestyle and are out walking on our sidewalks and streets. So thanks for that.
Okay, Cathy, do you have a follow-up?
Not to that one, but to the previous caller, if I might.
Okay, sure.
To, I think it was Gary,
yeah,
that asked about Station 13.
Right.
And so the opposite of phone a friend is a friend phoned me and sort of said, good morning, Councillor. There are no plans to close Station 13. It does need a major refit or a replacement. And I do know that would belong, not with Halifax Fire, but that belongs with, not actually. That decision is with Fleet. And so that will be a budget decision at Council.
Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. We'll be back with our councillors. All right, we got a little bit of time left at the top of the hour with our councillors. Cathy Deagle Gammon here in studio, along with Janet Steele. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Danny, hello.
Hi, Todd.
Hi there.
This question's more for Cathy Deagle.
Okay.
Last year I asked her this question. I asked David Hensby the year before, and I'll ask Cathy again this year. It's regarding the accessibility of sports fields. If I want to book a field,
accessibility of sports fields.
Money. Yes, if I want to book a field, they're quick to take my money for it. But if I want to find out what's going on a sports field, there's no access anywhere to that. There's no place I can go online. There's I think on 311. And Cathy said last year they'd have that sorted out before the end of the summer. Any follow-up?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I might not have heard that very last piece, but the accessibility of sports fields, there is on the Halifax website where you can look and where you can book the fields. Is that what you're talking about, Danny?
No, if I just want to go to a field and find out and go find out what game is playing or who's playing on the field, or if it's booked up, there's nothing there. There's nowhere. Last year you said you'd have something done up before the year because you said you had to work with the private field owners. But there's nothing online. 311 has no information about it.
Okay.
So if I just want to say I want to go to the ball field in Burnside, I don't know what's going on there unless I go to that diamond.
Right, but
or sports field.
Yeah, they're supposed to be. Danny, I'm really sorry that they're supposed to be on the Halifax website where you can go and you can look and you can see if the field is available or not. But I'm not so sure that they got to the point that they could say who exactly is playing on the field, because sometimes what happens is that the sports groups, the teams or whatever, they would book a whole series of times for the field, but they won't say exactly which teams are on there.
Right, but that would be an easy solution to just do it as an Excel spreadsheet, which David Hensby said he was going to do a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay. I'll talk to David about it too then.
There's been nothing done by you or David as far as if I want to go watch a team, I don't know if they're playing at this time, and I'd have to be following that team to be exact.
I'll have to check that out again, Danny. Like I said, I know that we made the ask. I'm trying to remember my memory here, but I'm trying to remember, and I know that David and I both made the ask about how do we find out who can be on the fields, and I was under the assumption that they were going to try to make it available on the website. So that looks like that didn't happen then, eh?
It's only available for if you want to pay money to book the field.
Right.
That's basically all it's any good for.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I'm not the first person that has asked this, and I know it's been asked before.
Okay.
I've been trying now for 4 years to get an answer.
So there also could be an issue. Look at this. Here's wonderful David Hensby. That there is an issue around confidentiality of users. So there could be something there that may have been an impediment to getting that done.
Can't see teams complaining about people coming out to watch them.
Just confidentiality. So whatever reason they would want it to be confidential, I don't know about, Danny, to be honest.
Okay. Well, if you can look into that again this year, and I'll call you next year.
Okay, Dan.
Danny, could you send me an email, and then I can email you back with whatever information that I can find?
I will, yes.
Oh, I would appreciate that. Thank you
Danny.
so much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk to Gary. Hi, Gary.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing well.
Good. I guess these questions are for Cathy, too. As a Fall River resident, I got a couple of issues, and I think I've hopefully got a solution to one of them. As you know, we've got a quagmire down there at the corner of Fall River Road and Highway 2 at, during peak hours.
Yes.
And with the developments coming along here soon, it's going to be worse. So one of the great things that they did here a couple of years ago was put in the flashing green when you're coming along Highway 2 to turn left.
Yes.
And that's alleviated a lot of the issue.
Yes.
Why in the world wouldn't they do a flashing green coming down Fall River Road and turning left onto Highway 2, especially when all the schools are getting out and the buses are lined back up way past Vanier School? Why wouldn't they have a flashing green there for 20 seconds, a half a minute?
I know that.
So all those buses and the traffic can turn left.
Wonderful question. Thank you, Gary. Yes, I've been working on this since I was elected, to be honest. And one of the things that we were able to accomplish was that flashing green for the left turn. In order to get the flashing green on the Fall River Road left onto Highway 2, the entire structure, the light structure, has to come out and be replaced. It is an older system. And so they didn't want to pull it out yet. They wanted to see what was going to happen with some of the deflecting traffic with the Aerotech connector, which should be open in the next couple of weeks, we hope, to see what level of traffic was going to be alleviated on that end. So as soon as they see some of that, I do know that the traffic services is looking at the lights for me, and they will do another assessment, and they're going to try to find out what is the best thing to do. You may have noticed in the last couple of years, we've played with those lights and the flashing green and the timing a couple of times, and that they've done some studies to find out the number of cars that can move through the intersection and what timing. So we've started to gather a good amount of data to figure out what is the best solution for it. So at this point, to make a major change would mean pulling the lights out and putting in a whole new system, which will be a budget thing. But hopefully when we see the Aerotech connector and see what that will happen. And the other thing that's happened now that the Burnside connector has opened, we've seen a lot less traffic there as well. So there's a couple of things that are coming into play, and hopefully we'll see a better solution coming soon.
Yeah, hopefully they will do something there, because there's a lot of accidents there, as you know.
There's near accidents, but there hasn't been an accident that's reported. That's the other thing that I checked on, Gary, was to say, because I've said to them, people are telling me there's accidents, and then when we go to find the data, there hasn't been accidents. There's been a few near misses. I've had a little taps on my backside myself at that intersection because I live at the end of the Fall River Road, so I use it every day, right? But yeah, so getting the right data so we can make the right information will be great. And literally, I am on their case. I am calling them once a week almost. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I had an accident there too, and it was, anyways, it ended up being 100% the other person's fault, and just taken care of. Just quickly, so I don't.
Glad you're safe.
Oh yeah, well, it's, anyways, just a quick thing is, I can't for the life of me, and I'm not a very smart person, figure out why in the world with this. The new understanding of having all the bike lanes and using them, people are allowed to park in the bike lanes outside Vanier School there for picking up kids on both sides of the road, and there's businesses on the other side. Yeah. There's been a few misses there, a few little misses. Yeah. Why are people allowed to park in bike lanes?
They're not. That's the simple piece. So what they're saying is that they're not parking, that they're just dropping off. And what I did do there was that we have no parking signs put on one side of the road. So they're only allowed to park on one side, not on both. It's been terrible around the school there, absolutely. And you may have noticed that I've actually asked the RCMP if, especially in September, throughout the year, but especially during the month of September, I keep asking the RCMP if they can have a presence there, because one of the worries is we've got people new moving into the community that maybe don't know what's going on, or they're just for the first time dropping their kids off at that school. So there's a lot of learning that has to happen in that first time. And I've worked with, they've got a wonderful principal there that sends out good information to families about what is safe drop off and pick up. So that we didn't have this problem before, because HRCE used to allow parents to drive into the school property, and parents could drop their kids off and it would be all great. But now HRC, a couple of years ago, I think maybe it's two or three maybe, they made the decision that they couldn't. So now parents are forced out onto the road to drop off their kids.
I don't swallow they're forced out in the road. They can go up to Jameson Park along there. Kids can walk 2 minutes and go and meet their parents if they want. And it's not just dropping off.
Oh yeah, I agree. They're
sitting on both sides of the road there, and you got to squeeze through there. And
it's
if there's somebody coming the other way, you just got to wait. And it's an accident wait, and it's illegal. So I don't get it. But anyways,
yeah, you're right. I don't get it either. That's why I've asked the RCMP to be there as much as I can.
Okay.
And find them.
Okay, Gary, thanks for the call.
Exactly.
All right. We didn't get to everybody for that. I apologize. Thanks so much, councillors, for coming in. We appreciate it. Kathy, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Janet, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it very much. All right, that's Janet Steele. That's Cathy Deagle Gammon. Now we get some time for you. What is on your mind on this Monday? Give us a buzz at 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Your calls when we come back. All right, what is on your mind on this Monday? The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Perhaps you might want to respond or react to what you heard with our councillors. We had lots of people on hold during our councillors on the hot seat, which is great. But unfortunately, we didn't get to everybody because, again, that's always a busy segment. So perhaps some things that you might want to carry on from that conversation or whatever else you've got in your mind. Again, the way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. One thing that did get touched on that I thought I would see if some of you want to weigh in on. One Halifax councillor is looking to de-designate Cogswell Park as an official encampment location. The motion from Virginia Hinch, which will be presented to council tomorrow, claims that the site is exceeding occupancy limits and is posing a risk to public safety. Cogswell Park was one of 9 sites the municipality chose to designate as tenting locations last year as the city grapples with an increasing number of unhoused people. The other locations include Bears Road, Windsor Street Park, By-High Park, Chain Lake Park, Halifax Common Berm, and Point Pleasant Park, which of course was very, very controversial. And the mayor, the premier of the province, Tim Houston, lambasted council for that decision to designate Point Pleasant Park at the time. And so, what are your thoughts on the encampment situation, folks? Is it inherently unfair to ask surrounding communities to have these in their midst? Is it unfair to ask, again, residents, taxpayers, residents, property owners in many cases, business owners in many cases, to have these encampments, legal encampments in their midst? Because look, there's a lot of downside to it, folks, and I understand that empathy is a great thing to have, and part of being a good society is trying to be empathetic and take care of everybody in society and everybody at all levels of the economics or socioeconomics. And whatever else challenges people have. I understand that. I get that. But at some point, folks, you have to ask yourself the question, are these working? Are these encampments working, and are they meeting the needs? And if not, what are the options? Because, again, some would say, and the argument's been made, that you can designate or de-designate or whatever. People are still going to be homeless, and they're still going to be camping, and there's still going to be tents. So I suppose that the argument could be made, why not just have them in designated areas? At least you have some control and can provide services to some degree in those areas. But what about you, folks? Are you impacted by this in any way? Do you live around any of these encampment sites? And do you have concerns that they're never going to go away? And never's a big word, I get that, but and to the bigger question, is there some reason for optimism, or is there some reason to believe that we're at least heading in the right direction when it comes to someday eliminating these encampment sites and not having a need for them? Because I don't see any progress whatsoever when it comes to this. The numbers continue to grow, seemingly, and so do frustration. And look, folks, I get it. I understand that. I personally don't have an encampment in my area where I live. If I did, would I have concerns? Absolutely, I would. Is it something that I would like to wake up to and walk out my front door and witness every day? No, it is not. I'll be completely honest with you. So for those of you who are in that situation, among these 9 sites that I talked about, wherever they are, Windsor Street, Park, Bears Road, Gary Street, green space across from the harbor in Dartmouth. What are your thoughts on this, folks? Is this something that you're okay with? Do you see a need for and support? Or is it something that you feel the municipality should do something different? And if not for encampments, what? What are the alternatives? Because I don't have any answers, folks. 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Is having designated encampment sites unfair to the surrounding communities? That's one of the questions that I'd like you to talk about. And what are the options other than encampments? Is there any progress, any reason for optimism at all when it comes to homelessness and finding alternatives in HRM? And I would suggest that there's really not a lot of reason for optimism at this point. 902-405-6000. Also, strong mayor powers. In the Chronicle Herald this morning, I'll read a bit of the story. If strong mayor powers happen, Sam Austin wants to have a say before being surprised by provincial legislation again. Talk of Nova Scotia followed Ontario's lead, and granting strong mayor powers in HRM is gaining steam. And the Dartmouth Centre councillor wants to make sure council is consulted before implementing such dramatic changes to how councils in this province operate. Here's a quote from Sam Austin. I would say that this has been out there in the chatter, so to speak, the buzz around. If the province is looking to make a change here, I don't think it's unreasonable that the municipalities of the province get some kind of say in that. Again, quoted in the Chronicle Herald. He goes on to say it's a pretty fundamental thing to mess with people's democratic vote and what they voted for at City Hall and how they are represented. I think that if that's something that's going to happen, it should happen publicly, not as something as a fait accompli out of the back rooms. During the Halifax Regional Council meeting tomorrow, he will propose a 4-part motion. And they include that the mayor write a letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, John Lohr, requesting that if legislation is drafted, the province consult with HRM and the 48 other municipalities in the province. The mayor also write to the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities Board encouraging them to adopt a similar position on consultation. institute a deadline on July 22nd of those letters, and that any responses be circulated to council, and a staff report on how strong mayor powers have been implemented elsewhere in Canada and what lessons can be learned. So what are your thoughts on this, folks? Would you support strong mayor powers legislation here in Nova Scotia or not? What concerns might you have or not? 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Give us a call. What's on your mind today? And, of course, the ongoing bike lane debate continues. 902-405-6000. EFO's giving us a call. Hello, EFO. EFO, hello. Okay, I'll let EFO go. Let's talk to Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hey, good morning, Todd. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Good, buddy. I wanted to get on with Janet Steele. You know that I'm really peeved off regarding wash bills I drive. I sat here in my living room the other night, and I listened to a car. Apparently, he or she started at the bottom of Washbill and didn't brake until she got to Bears Lake, because that's when it started to fade away. Also, when they're coming down Washbill, there's a set of lights there. Well, not a set of lights, but a crossing sign, and two cars could come down. One stops, and the other one flies by. Now, they put a policeman up at Lacewood bus terminal to watch out for kids when they come over from Halifax West. Why can't they put a patrol car, patrol Washbill, not periodically, but once in a while? Maybe it may stop the people from speeding. Again, I don't know what the speed limit is on Washbill. It appears to me it's like a major highway. Maybe it should be called Highway 105. I'm not being sarcastic, but they just speed up that, and it's just unreal, Todd. I just can't believe it. I mean, what's Janet Steele doing about this? And as far as the encampments go, it ain't going away, Todd. You said it best. It's not going away. I mean, I was talking to a fellow the other day that was sitting out in front of the dollar store over here in Clayton Park, and I asked him, I said, how's things going? Oh, man, I'm having it tough. I can't find anything. They're not doing anything for us. Todd, it's a bad state of affairs. I don't know what the answers are. Maybe the next time you're talking to the councillors, maybe bring it up, because there is something not right in Denmark.
Okay, Eric. Thanks for the call, pal. Take care.
Okay.
902-405-6000. Let's try EFO again. Hello, EFO. EFO, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Beautiful. Okay. I have an answer to when the councillors are wondering about people trying to book fields.
Okay.
I talked to the city a couple years ago about fields and trying to figure out why we can't find out. Like, we don't really need to know who booked the field. We just need to know if the field is available. And apparently what I got from the city staff is that they are discouraged from letting us know when it's booked or not, except if we try to pay. So they're trying to discourage people from using the fields for free, which I don't think is a good thing. I think they should be encouraging people to exercise and get out there. So if that information was made public, at least it'll make it easier for people to plan things. That's my take.
Okay, Ufo. Appreciate the call.
And just one last thing, since you mentioned the housing situation.
Yeah.
I think if the city adopted a policy of housing first and stopped giving away all this for-profit housing initiatives and moved towards non-profit, non-market-based housing, we'll be able to actually solve the housing problem. But I think there's a conflict of interest because a lot of folks in government are also landlords, so they do not want to actually solve the problem. That's my hot take. Thanks, and have a beautiful day.
Okay, pal. Take care. 902-405-6000. What's on your mind today, folks? Give us a call. We get some open lines for you. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, folks, we've got open lines for you. Give us a call at 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. What is on your mind on this Monday morning? Again, 902-405-6000. One Halifax councillor looking to de-designate Cogswell Park as an official encampment location The motion from Virginia Hinch, which will be presented to council tomorrow, claims the site is exceeding occupancy limits and is posing a risk to public safety. Cogswell Park, of course, is one of 9 sites the municipality chose to designate as tenting locations last year as the city grapples with an increasing number of unhoused people. What are your thoughts on what we can do about this ongoing situation? Again, this is not unique to Halifax, in all fairness, and it's not unique to large communities either, for that matter. There are encampments and tents in I would say just about every community throughout the region, in places where you would never expect to see it, as people grapple with the cost of living. And public housing is basically non-existent for the most part. We have not invested in public housing for a very, very long time, at least not to a large degree. So what can be done about this, folks? And what are your thoughts on encampments in your community? Are you impacted by these? Do you have encampments in your community? And if so, what are the challenges of this? Obviously, the visibility is a challenge, and having people living in these situations, homeless people, that brings inherent challenges to your doorstep. What are your thoughts on this, folks? It's nice to be empathetic. I understand that. We want to be sympathetic, empathetic. That all said, how much are you willing to deal with personally? It impacts property value. I get that. 902-405-6000. That or whatever else you've got in your mind. Again, 902-405-6000. May's giving us a buzz. Hello, May.
Hi. Sorry. Alexa, stop. Alexa playing your show. I just wanted to talk about the sports fields. The guy was talking earlier in the previous segment that he's been trying to find this information out for years. I find it troubling that people don't understand that it's a confidentiality breach, like completely, to tell other people, where I am playing sports, where my children are playing sports. It's a safety concern for sure. It makes sense to be able to find out if, they're booked or they're available to be booked, but who is using them? Like, that's not appropriate to have that information available for just anyone.
Yeah, for sure. And so confidentiality, you would say that is, as a caller mentioned.
Yeah, like absolutely. That's the reason why this isn't being done. Like, he's been saying he's asking for it, but like it can't be done. Like, know who is playing where. It's just not safe. Okay, fair enough. Thank you, May. Appreciate the call. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. What is on your mind today, folks? Give us a call. We've got lots of open lines for you. Again, 902-405-6000. Something that perhaps you might want to weigh in on is strong mayor powers. And if, in fact, strong mayor power happens here in HRM, Sam Austin, of course, a veteran councillor, has been around council for quite a number of years now, wants to have a say in it, and feels as though that council and councillors should be consulted. Again, these are pretty bold moves, and we had, of course, Sean Cleary on the show a couple of weeks, probably 3 weeks ago now or so. And he brought this to our attention, first of all, saying that he heard through channels, through sources, that the province is going to roll out strong mayor powers and amend the Halifax Charter in the next session of the legislature, which, again, would be a big change to the municipality, not only Halifax, but, again, I'm not sure if this would be expanded to all municipalities or if it would just be applicable to the Halifax Charter and HRM in general. But do you have concerns that if, in fact, that the mayor of HRM was given more powers, that would they be used properly? Because among the possibilities would be that the mayor could hire and fire senior staff. Right now, the mayor cannot do that arbitrarily. He has one vote, and that's it. And from what I understand, the CAO is the only level of staff, or the only staff that council can hire and fire. And perhaps that might be expanded out if, in fact, strong mayor powers were awarded through the provincial government. So do you have concerns about that, folks? Or maybe you think that the mayor should have expanded power and that it might be a good move. What are your thoughts? 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. That, of course. Or encampments, again, something that listen, we've talked an awful lot about on the show, but I think that the issue of encampments is not going away anytime soon. Certainly not. And I see no reason, unfortunately, for optimism at this point. I'd like to be able to say that there are metrics and there are studies and there are statistics that would indicate that we're heading in the right direction, but I don't see it. I see the problem only expanding and potentially getting worse. So give us a call, folks. What is on your mind? 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, folks, give us a call, 902-405-6000. Everybody's quiet out there today. It's a Monday morning. I get it. It's a hazy summer day, but we'd like to hear from you, folks. Give us a call. What's on your mind? If you've not called the show before, now is a great opportunity to have your say. Give us a buzz at 902-405-6000. Something that we just heard in our newscast. A reignited feud between U.S. President Donald Trump and Tesla owner Elon Musk has sent shares of the electric vehicle maker tumbling. Tesla shares fell 6.5% overnight after Musk announced over the weekend that he was forming a third political party in protest over the recent passing of a Republican spending bill. Trump suggested in social media response that Musk had gone off the rails, noting he knew about the termination of an electric vehicle mandate contained in the bill. What are your thoughts, folks, on what's happening in the United States, south of the border, of course, in the political sphere? Just when you think things can't get any crazier, they do. It's just unbelievable. Well, how far can something erode and deteriorate? I mean, you want to talk about a gong show, folks. This is beyond a gong show. Do you think that Elon Musk would ever succeed in forming a third political party in the United States? And has he gone off the rails? Or was he already off the rails? Or what about Trump? Is Trump off the rails, for that matter? What are your thoughts on what's happening in the United States right now politically, folks? That is something you can get into, or whatever else you'd like to get into. 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. If you've never called the show before, now's a great opportunity. Give us a buzz. We'll get you on. John, hello.
Hey, buddy. How's the day going?
It's going okay, man. Things are quiet. How are things at the barbershop today?
Quiet, too. I don't know if everyone's on vacation with the nice weather, but anyway, my last customer that just came in, Todd, it's kind of concerning. I think as Canadians, we need to treat people better. So I just had this American couple from Florida. They came up here because they felt bad about everything going on and they wanted to support our economy. And they said, half the Canadians are just wonderful to them and the other half were like snubbing their nose up at them. And they said they were over in PEI. I don't know. There was some indigenous ceremony or something. I can't remember exactly what the event was. And at the end of the event and that, the people that were on stage, they started yelling F-bomb America, they were just in shock, really. I don't know. I just think we can do better than that.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, people are visiting us from the United States. Obviously, we want to welcome them, right? They're not responsible for what's going on politically.
No, and they didn't vote for Trump either. I just can't believe they're being treated like that here.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Okay, John,
that's just my rant for the day.
Thanks, bud. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Take care. 902-405-6000. Another John. Hello, John.
Hey, John. How are you?
It's Todd.
I had a couple of comments. Number one is I'm a retired guy selling my house. And if one of those encampments was close to my house, I bet you I'd get $200,000 less for the house, because who's going to buy a house with an encampment right beside it?
Yep, absolutely, 100%.
And many moons ago, I used to coach hockey and baseball. And as far as the knowing, the information on who's got the fields, it's nobody's business except for the people with the field. And they can get all the information they want. The people who are using it, they can get all the information they want from their coaches and the association. Like, there's no need to make that public.
Yeah, for sure. I can see. To me, the confidentiality thing is I think makes the most sense as to why they don't.
Yeah, and like when I was coaching a baseball team, there's lots of emails went out, and everybody knew where the field was, unless I screwed up, which I did a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
But and one more quick comment on the mayoralty power.
Sure.
If you're going to let a person go from their job, it's a very traumatic thing for that person, and especially for their family, because they all of a sudden don't have a source of employment. And I don't think the mayor. I think that should be a decision that's made with all 11 councillors, because it's such a serious decision, and we voted for those councillors, so they should be in on the decision.
Okay, so beyond that, John, do you think that the mayor could or should have expanded powers, or no?
No, I think that those major decisions should be made by the whole council.
Okay, appreciate it, John. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
take care. 902-405-6000. Jeremy's giving us a call. Hello, Jeremy.
Hi, Todd. How you doing?
I'm well. You?
Let's talk about Elon Musk and Donald Trump. I'm gonna make a call on this. I think it's going to be a very bad idea for Mr. Elon Musk to form a different political party. And not in the sense that I think it's going to take away people from the Republican Party. I think it's going to drain people from the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
If you look at the politics down there, a lot of people are dissatisfied with how the Democratic Party handled itself during the last election. And they're looking for a viable option. So what happens comes the midterm, it actually strengthens the Republican Party's hand and weakens the Democratic Party's hand, because Elon Musk giving them a different option. Just food for thought on that one.
Yeah, I think the votes are going to come from somewhere, and I think you're probably correct. I think that probably he would. It could benefit Trump and the Republicans, a third party.
So I think a lot of people that are like cheering on the fact that this has happened because, oh, good, it's going to hurt Trump.
Yeah.
You might want to think again on that one.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. I think you're on something. Thanks, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
Take care. 902-405-6000. Will, hello.
Yes, good morning, Todd. How are you this morning?
I'm well, you?
Very well, thanks. Great show. Just a brief few comments. I think the issue that Mr. Musk may have is people might want to have empathy for a man who is espousing an idea to form a new party, but yet here's a well-renowned billionaire who threw a lot of weight and capital support behind Trump in the last election, and I'm not sure he would have the overall public support for that. And I think your other caller makes a good point. I mean, we've known from the past that a third-party candidate or for representing another party doesn't always bode well. I think the example of that looks back to between Clinton, Bush, and of course Ross Perot back in '92. So, he took some of the vote away, but he wasn't the champion overall during the vote.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the votes are going to come from somewhere. We know that, right? And we know that those who are loyal to Trump probably are not going to move away from Trump, I would say.
Yeah, I think you're quite right on that. I think those who have been in his camp for some time, even going back to the first administration, you're going to certainly stay with him. People who are most concerned, perhaps even happening with the bill, happening with the attacks on education, what's going on with the ICE attacks within various states as far as immigration mandates. I mean, they're probably deeply concerned of what's happening. But overall, he has strong sway over the party. And I think, barring anything unforeseen, I think it's going to be challenging for the Democrats in the midterms.
Yeah, for sure. And I also believe, Will, that there are people out there, and quite a few of them, who silently support Donald Trump. I really believe that.
Yeah, I think you've got a good point. I mean, and I think, just briefly, I think there are people who have a moderate view of conservatism who still feel that there are things that Trump has taken positions on that they believe in. even though they may question some of his other policies and the direction which the country is going. And that's their own particular conscience about how they wish to vote and who want to press their support. What I find unfortunate so much is that so many people are vilified for their own positions about where they want to vote with their conscience, whom they want to pass their support to. And that's unfortunately very tragic, the polarization that's going on.
Okay, well, appreciate the call.
Yeah, have a great day.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. John giving us a call. Hello, John.
Hello, Todd. I just want to continue on the conversation that you had on Thursday about why some Canadians are leaving Canada.
Okay.
I'm a retiree recently. I have a small little nest egg, and I am a temporary resident of El Salvador. I decided to move to Central America for several reasons. There's food there 12 months of the year. It's not trucked in. We got good, clean water and good communication. Number two, there's no HST. There's no tax down there on anything. So when I go to the restaurant and spend $20 for a meal, it's $20 plus a propina, which is, I think, 5% for a tip.
Mm-hmm.
No taxation. When I go to the grocery store to get my groceries and I buy a bottle of shampoo and toothpaste, no tax on that. The medical system, you're pretty much on your own. I have my own doctor there. It cost me $30 American when I first visited him. $30 American. I spent an hour in there. He gave me a full report. He messaged that to me in WhatsApp, and I was able to see everything. $30 US. He said, John, I need some blood work from you, but since you're my new patient, I need to check everything. I said, okay. My blood work, I think it was over 20 tests he did it on. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But it cost me $320. But the next blood test that I get would be a lot less because I'll only be checking 2 things in my blood.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing was an EKG. I got an EKG done, and that cost me, I think, $30 American. And I got a copy of that. So when I went to see my doctor, I got a copy of everything. I have everything. So you have to ask yourself, well, that might not be for everybody. One thing I haven't done is I haven't asked my doctor whether I can get an outside medical plan for, let's say, operations or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But my whole point, Todd, is just tax after tax in this country continuously. This climate change and the taxes on that, it's getting insane here in Canada, Nova Scotia, and probably HRM. The other thing, Todd, if I could just say 2 more items, is
Sure.
There's no crime there. I had people last year telling me, yeah, there's crime down there. No. President Bukele arrested all the criminals, over 50,000, and jailed them all. And these guys were doing kidnapping, murder, extortion, everything. The last thing, Todd, is President Bukele, when he come into office January the 1st, 2025, 0 tolerance for drinking and driving. 0. It's not 0.01. It's 0. You get caught, you're fined. They take your car away, whatever they want to do. So, again, it's not for everybody, but for me, I'm leaving for a better life. The last thing I'll tell you, my parents came from Greece, 50, 60 years ago, the same time when many Lebanese were coming to Canada, a lot of Italians, Chinese, and they pretty much started, I think, the economies here in HRM. So they came from Greece for a better life here to Canada, and we had it, but now I'm leaving for a better life. Any comments on that?
Well, no. Look, I think it's interesting. Certainly, what you had to say, what you're saying. I wasn't aware of what you were saying. Like you said, it's not for everybody, but for those who, I think, John, as people become more and more disenfranchised and find it more and more difficult to survive here, and not only to survive but to thrive, even, I think you're going to see more and more people looking for alternatives like you have.
Well, again, the taxation system, I just had breakfast yesterday. It cost me whatever it was, $15. I think I paid $2 in tax. I got gas, and I probably paid another $2 there. And probably the next couple of days, I'll buy something else. So there's my doctor's visit. And again, I got everything on paper. He gave me everything. I was able to bring it to my doctor here, and she pretty much confirmed everything. And Todd, I was lucky. I met some really young, I call them ninjas, very smart Nicaraguans. And right now we're doing a couple projects on fusion. I called several weeks ago and talked to Dr. Rob. And we're also doing, water management and all that. So that's the comment that I wanted to make. If you have a nice little nest egg, it's not for everybody. I've been there 8 or 9 times. I know how the way of life is. I know how hot it can be there and where it's not hot. Thank you for listening today, Todd.
All right. Thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. We will continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Couple of quick emails and back to the phones. Rob says this via email, says, it's shameful that the province and the city continue to rearrange the deck chairs on the proverbial Titanic when it comes to homelessness. The growing number of homeless people in Halifax is statistical proof of their inaction. And this one from David said, Sam Austin and Sean Cleary are more concerned with keeping the mayor weak powers in place so they can advance their own agenda. If the mayor has the same power as councillors, why have the mayor who's being paid $100,000 more than councillors? Is it so he can attend social events on behalf of the city? I agree with strong mayor powers, provided the provincial government puts the necessary limits on that power. That comes from David. And that is a good, I think it's a valid question. Why does the mayor make $100,000 more? If that is the number, I think that's the number, more than the rest of council. Is it, again, look, as mayor, you've got added responsibility in that you're the face of the region, you're the face of the city, of course, and kind of spokesperson for the city. I get that. But if your inherent powers are no more than any other councillor, then perhaps that that extra pay is unwarranted. 902-405-6000. Wendell's giving us a call. Hello, Wendell.
Morning, Todd.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm well, you?
I know you're good. Todd, I wanted to make a comment on your 2 Johns that recently called, but first off, the main reason I called is I want to tell your listeners there's an app that you can download to your phone called Yuka, Y-U-K-A, and you can scan anything, Todd, that has a barcode on it, and it will give you a rating on that product. And that could be something that goes in your body or on your body, food or cosmetics, shampoo, whatever. And it'll give you a rating, and it'll tell you what's in there, the good stuff, the bad stuff, and it's just a really nice little app that you can check. Should I buy this or should I not buy that? And I just thought your listeners may be interested in it.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, and your buddy John there that called about first off about the treatment of the Americans, some of the Americans. Look, we spent some time in Florida over the winter, and I can tell you that we were treated with nothing but love, kindness, and respect. And everything down there is so positive and so upbeat and high frequency and all of that. And, if we had an issue or a problem with something, there would have been more Americans that jumped in and say, what can we do to help? How can we help you get over this? How can we help fix this? So they are just the most wonderful people, and it bothers me when I hear them being treated like that. And your friend who just called from El Salvador, I thought he made some very, very interesting points, and frankly, I don't blame him a damn bit. I'm of an age where I can't do that anymore, but when you look at the way we are being hosed with taxes on this, taxes on that, and if people went from A to Z, we're being stolen from and by the government, and I just can't believe that people didn't have enough with a decade of Justin Castro, and they elect this guy or vote this guy in, who's just another WEF goon, and we're going to just get more of the same, only worse. And he's another wolf in sheep's clothing. So anyway, that's my comment.
Okay, Wendell, appreciate the call.
Yeah,
take care.
Thanks.
All right, you got it. Spiro, hello.
Yes, hello, Todd.
Hi there.
Hi, I'm just calling to respond to John that his parents moved here in 1969 from Greece, and I left Greece in 1968 because of the dictatorship there, and that's probably why his parents left, and now their offspring, John, he's moving to a dictatorship. So I will tell John, good luck, John. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. All right. All right. Take care, Sparrow. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call, everybody. We appreciate it very much. We'll open the phone lines again tomorrow between 11 and 12. Mixed reviews on the government's plan to change Nova Scotia's policing. We'll discuss this when we come back. All right. The Nova Scotia government is embarking on a plan to change the way policing is done across the province by ensuring forces meet a standard and by integrating more police into communities. The plan was detailed in a report recently by Deloitte, which the government said indicated that 6 foundational changes are needed to bring better policing to the province. Joining us to talk about all of this is Chris Giacomantonio, Director at the Clairmont Centre for Community Safety Research at Dalhousie University. Jack, thanks for joining the show. Or Chris, rather, I apologize. Chris Giacomantonio.
All the time.
All right, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Todd.
All right, so what was your response in general to this, Chris?
So, I mean, there's a lot to take in here. Obviously, this report comes at the end of a Deloitte report, which is pretty lengthy, and obviously the Mass Casualty Commission reports and other reports like the report into street checks in 2019. And so there's a lot to unpack here in terms of what has been said across these reports. But if we focus kind of on the foundational changes, so the government's response to this report, there's these sort of 6 foundational changes, and there's a lot of details left to be figured out in terms of what these changes are going to mean in practice. Ultimately, this could be a big change, or it could be a kind of no real change at all. It's completely imaginable that in 10 years' time, policing in the province is delivered by the same set of policing organizations under more or less the current policing standards, with more or less the same amount of resourcing, with a slightly better billing framework between the RCMP and independent municipal police forces, and with a unified records management system. So it could be everything is the same on the front end, and it looks more or less the same. The big things for me, the big S things, the things that will probably be the most notable changes are this kind of proposal of a layered policing model, the implementation of community safety officers, and then maybe the establishment of community safety boards. Whether or not people actually notice police governance now, and whether they'll notice it in the future is fully something we could question. But the community safety officers are an interesting part of the report, but I actually don't know what to make of them, or the community and the special consuls, because I don't know how they'll be deployed, who they'll report to, what their main goal will be. And it's hard. My main concern here is it's hard to understand what problem these community safety officers are really designed to solve.
All right. Well, that's kind of that's disappointing to think that the province went through all of this, went through this horrendous event, had the Mass Casualty Commission commissioned this report, and then nothing changes. That's kind of a sad commentary, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think, a lot of these changes, and I know you've talked to people, I listened to your show a few times last week, who would want to see the RCMP removed. And I know that that's kind of the big kind of talking point around this, that, if you want this to change, if you want kind of harmonized top to bottom standards, greater provincially directed capabilities, you would need to establish sort of a fully a Nova Scotian approach to policing. And the fact that that didn't happen is, to me, not particularly surprising. I think, any assessment of actual costs of making major changes to the organizational structure of policing in Nova Scotia, it comes with a price tag in the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars before anyone can notice any change in policing quality, and where we'd be much longer than a standard 4-year political cycle to get to those changes. So I'm unsurprised by that, I guess. But also, I think, this idea of a layered policing model, the bigger disappointment here is it's not clear to me that any of that is going to improve the kind of police work that would have been required to get in the way of the mass casualty event, to improve interoperability, to take seriously kind of major crime issues like gender-based violence, like mid-level organized crime, like the complexity of online and cyber fraud. It's not clear to me that this intervention is going to matter for the kinds of crimes that cause the most harms in our communities.
All right, there's some concern from some area mayors about this, who have their own police force, including the community of Bridgewater, and there are others. Do you understand, or I guess, can you see why they would have some concerns with this?
So I can't really comment without knowing a lot more. I mean, I think they'll be in the best position to tell you what their relationship is with, for example, the RCMP, their ability to abide by existing standards, what the new billing relationship will mean for them. I simply wouldn't have the numbers available to comment on the viability of these changes for smaller police services.
No, but I guess that having the concern that standards would be the RCMP, that somehow that is the threshold or the standard. What are your thoughts on that? Because there are communities and community policing that would feel as though that they are already meeting a pretty high standard.
So I mean, I think if a community can't, I've seen the Nova Scotia policing standards. I don't see anything in there that I wouldn't expect a police service to meet. And if they can't meet it with their own resources, they need to establish, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe a contractual mechanism with another municipal police service or with the RCMP to make up that gap. So if they can't undertake certain types of investigations or don't have sufficient capacity to do certain types of police functions, that they have a mechanism that is established through an MOU and a proper billing function with another police service to ensure they can meet that standard. I think that's the mechanism. I don't see anything unreasonable about that. So that kind of thing for me is one of the things that's actually a good thing in this report, although I know some of the small town mayors and police chiefs would potentially disagree that, making sure that the standard of policing across the province is more or less equivalent, unifying the records management system and making the cost associated with that more transparent through a billing framework, that all seems reasonable. I don't see any major objection there. In principle, there may be some nuts and bolts objections that specific mayors may have.
All right. How about integrating response to mental health calls and enhancing streamlined data sharing and some of these other components to this?
So, I mean, I guess to the point about response to mental health calls, I don't see anything in the foundational changes that will actually do that. If the intention is that the community safety officers would do that, it's not clear to me that that's a great model. I think if you look at, there's not a lot of research on whether or not people like community safety officers are a good resource for mental health calls. And as far as I can tell, that's the only thing listed in the foundational changes that would do anything about that. And, if you look at what research does exist, it seems to suggest that community safety officers are much more important for low-level crime prevention and public visibility than they are for improving responses to complex issues.
Okay, so you talked about in the story which I'm referencing, which was on our website, about visibility and expanding visibility. Just for the sake of doing so, that might not be effective. Why do you expand on that, if you will?
Sure. I mean, police visibility is valuable. It certainly is important in public confidence in the police. There's plenty of research to this end. But that doesn't seem to be the core of the problem that was brought forward in the Mass Casualty Commission report. It doesn't even seem to be the core of the problem that was brought forward in the Deloitte report. Now, there's a lot of mention that residents would want more police to be more involved at things like local events. But it's not clear to me that that's a serious enough issue to warrant a major foundational investment or a change to the Police Act that allows a new type of officer to exist, or a new, the establishment of a new role called a community safety officer in the province. I know other provinces have done it, but in most cases, presumably they're doing it because they have a specific important problem that they're trying to respond to. And I don't see in any of the reports I've seen a clear indication, aside from the fact that people have asked for it. There are clearly in this Deloitte report people asking for more visibility in their community, but people would also ask for greater enforcement against speeding and unruly teenagers. But that doesn't mean that that's where our policing priorities should be. Our policing priorities should be based on what's causing the most harm in the province.
Right. So this could likely, I guess, the takeaway from the chat here is that this could be like many other reports, get dusty after a while, and really no substantive change ever come of this.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I'd like to see the kind of resource commitment from the province, but just on foundational change one, which is Unified Records Management System. If you look at the experience of the establishment of Prime BC in British Columbia, which was the attempt to put in a Unified Records Management System, it took, the better part of a decade and a lot of money just to do that, because you have to migrate data between systems, you have to train up different organizations on the new system. So if one is on PROS and another is on Versadex, whichever one wins, the other organization has a lot of work to do. And then you have the harmonization of, levels of record sensitivity across that system. So all of these things are going to take a lot of work. It's not going to be done within the next couple of years. And each one of these things is a multi-year effort. So if the province is truly committed to all of this, then that's great. The establishment of community safety boards, that's going to require, I presume, opening up the Police Act. That's going to require legislation. It's going to require the dissolution of existing boards and the creation of new boards and the training of the volunteers on those boards and so on. So, we'll see if they are willing to hit the ground running on this, if they've got the resourcing required to get everything up and going more or less immediately, because as you say, there's the risk that if in a couple of years there isn't significant traction on some of these foundational changes, that a new political cycle starts and most of this gets washed away.
Chris, appreciate your insight. Thanks for doing this.
All right. Thanks, Todd.
All right. Take care. Chris Giacomantonio, Director of the Clairmont Centre for Community Safety Research at Dalhousie University. Anti-landmine advocates urge Canada to try keeping Ukraine, others in Ottawa Treaty, and we'll get to this when we come back. Canadian advocates are urging Ottawa to protect the 1997 treaty Canada brokered to stop the use of landmines as 6 countries on Europe's eastern flank move toward using the explosive weapons. Joining us to discuss all of this is Senator Marilou McPhedran. Senator McPhedran, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Todd.
All right, so give us a little history lesson here, if you will, please, on this and where we are today.
Well, this is generally known as the Ottawa Treaty, and it has had very significant success. It has saved thousands and thousands of lives, including many, many children. The whole idea behind the treaty actually came from Canada. It was first signed in Canada, and it was brokered by the then Foreign Affairs Minister, Lloyd Axworthy. And this is a time when Nova Scotia is very well represented by Liberals, including 2 cabinet ministers, Fraser and Diaz. And this is part of a proud legacy, not only for country as Canada, but for the fact that we ended up with more than 160 countries signed on to this treaty. And now we're starting to see the threats to civilians within countries on the eastern flank of Europe who are understandably very afraid that they will have something similar to Ukraine. But the effectiveness of landmines needs to be understood because in many ways they're old-fashioned.
Okay, so what is leading to the proliferation of them again? Why are we reversing course here when it comes to the use of landmines?
I think in one word, Russia.
Right.
The illegal war on Ukraine has caused Ukraine to think about every possible way to defend their country, and by defending their country, to defend democracy around the world. And sadly, and I think wrongly, that has included deciding to try to protect their borders with landmines. I think it's really important for everyone to understand that the disproportionate impact on landmines is on civilians. It's not on soldiers. And it goes on and on and on and on. And a huge number of those civilians who are injured, including in the same countries using the landmines, are children.
Okay, so what's Canada's official stance on this at this time?
Well, we hear from Global Affairs Canada when they're asked, from officials. I don't think we've had any strong statement from ministers as yet that it is a priority and that they are having discussions with countries that are thinking of withdrawing. We know that Eastern flank Europe, it's the countries that come and that are facing threats from Russia. And I think at this point, we have so little information, Global Affairs Canada, that we don't know what is actually the question, I think, at the summer, Todd, I hope for...
Hi, Senator. Your connection is a little sketchy there.
Sorry. Okay, let me try. I'm in a rather... Is this better?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. Repeat that, if you will, again, please.
Yeah, I wanted to just suggest to listeners that this is a summer question because that's when parliamentarians are back home and interacting with people and wanting to know what people care about. And Nova Scotia is so well represented primarily by Liberals, including 2 cabinet ministers. This is something that could be made a priority, and the timing of it is crucial because we've had this notice to withdraw from the Ottawa Treaty from a number of the countries on the eastern flank of Europe, and the process has begun. And in fact, the president of Ukraine has signed the formal withdrawal from the treaty. So what we're seeing is progress that has been made over 30 years disappearing. And it is part of the erosion of democracy. So I think if we see the bigger picture here for what Canada stands for and what Canadians really care about, this is a time when questions can be asked.
Okay, so are landmines relatively inexpensive in comparison to other ordinances? Is that perhaps of why they are expanding and why Russia is using them?
Yeah, the short answer is it's I think it's much attitude. It's much a sense of trying to do every possible thing, use every possible weapon. But the research on this is really clear. Landmines are old-fashioned. Landmines don't stop the enemy. Landmines harm civilians at a very, very high rate. And the way in which we now are able to use drones, for example, it's a far more effective defense.
Okay, so what about the manufacturing of landmines? Where is there an epicenter as to where they're made, or who's manufacturing these devices?
Yeah, I mean that has always remained the key issue. Although more than 160 countries signed on to the treaty, have observed the treaty, and although we have more than 20 countries that have been made landmine free, by the way, with millions and millions of dollars invested by Canada. Huge commitment by Canada over decades to make this happen. And what we know, though, is that most of the landmine producing countries never signed on to the treaty, and they are continuing to produce landmines. And that includes the United States. Very interesting.
So if you had to, I suppose, predict where this is going to go, where do you think what trajectory? Well, obviously, you're concerned we're heading in the wrong direction here, obviously, right?
Well, I think if we care about democracy, I think if we care about children, if we think that war is something that is generally not good for the world, then this is an opportunity. This is a really clear, straightforward issue. And it is an issue that Canada's had a signature on from the very beginning. It's had leadership for decades. And it's a tremendous opportunity, really, for Canada to step up internationally. You know, there are comments that are sometimes made about how we just don't have the same heft internationally as we once did, and we don't have the same reputation as a peace builder, a peacemaker. And this is an ideal opportunity for us to continue to do this work to support the reduction of landmines and to use our very strong diplomatic skills to do so.
Senator, I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for the concern, Todd.
All right, take care. Senator Marilou McPhedran. Local sports with Ken Bagnell, who's going to have a couple of guests with him when we come back. Kate Vincent, reigning Olympic champ, canoeist, and Connor Fitzpatrick, also a two-time Olympian from Dartmouth. We'll be back. All right, time to talk some local sports with Ken Bagnell, CEO, Canadian Sport Institute Atlantic. Ken, hello.
Hello. How are you, Todd?
I'm well. Yourself?
Excellent.
Excellent. And you brought an entourage with you today.
We did. We're very fortunate to have some of Canada's best athletes with us today.
There you go. And, of course, Kate Vincent is reigning Olympic champion and trains here in Dartmouth. Kate, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Connor Fitzpatrick, two-time Olympian from Dartmouth as well in the canoe, of course.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Excellent. So, what's it like to be an Olympic champion?
I think it's pretty good. It's a pretty good deal for sure. I've really been enjoying it. It's been an incredible road to get to the Olympics just in itself, and then to obviously win the gold medal in Paris was probably the cherry on top of all that, and just getting to enjoy all the perks that come with being an Olympic champion in Canada and getting to share it with so many Canadians and so many Canadian sport fans, I think has been the best part.
Yeah, and you're from Toronto, is that correct?
Mississauga, yeah.
Mississauga, excellent. And what drew you to the canoe?
I was drawn to the canoe because I'm from Port Credit, which is a little neighborhood in Mississauga, and there's a canoe club right on the river there, and I just grew up going to summer camp there as a kid, and my brother was a canoer, and he was a bit older than me, and I thought that was pretty cool, so I kind of copied him. And, since then, that's just been a part of our family's lives for almost 20 years now.
Nice. Connor, you're a Dartmouth boy, correct?
I am. Born and raised.
Yeah. And Lake Veinotte, why not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. When you get that type of facility, that's an obvious draw, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a world-class facility right on your home turf. Like, you got to take advantage of that anytime you can.
Yeah, for sure. So what's it been like to compete in the Olympics for you? What's that like?
It's an honor, honestly, just to wear my family's name on my back and wear the leaf and proudly get to paddle next to Katie and at the same regattas as Katie is pretty cool. And just the rest of our team, getting to see people compete and getting to compete against the best in the world is just such an honor, and it's such a great time. Everybody's on the high with you, and everybody's excited. Everybody wants to win, so it's just a really great vibe all around.
Yeah. Ken, what's it like to be around these types of athletes and have that kind of energy?
Well, it's really amazing. I mean, we have the role models here, and they're here every day. They paddle, train, and maybe we can get them to tell you what it's like in the day of the life of an Olympic paddler. But we have these examples very quiet in our community. And anybody who drives by Lake Veinotte sees all this activity, but the amount of work that they put in really has paid off with paddlers from here or paddlers who come here to train being some of the best in the world. And we have such depth here in that sport. It's something we should celebrate, but it's also a great example to the other sports of how you can be successful. There's no cutting corners here, and maybe Katie and Connor, you can tell us, what a day in your training would look like.
All right, Katie, let's start with you. What goes into becoming an Olympic champion rower?
Yeah, it's canoer.
Canoer, sorry.
Yeah, I can't confuse those.
Paddler, I should have said.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work. I think so a typical day for us would, we kind of get to the lake in the morning around 7:30 and do a bit of a warm-up on land. Then we get on the water for about an hour, come off, have a snack. We'll be in the gym after that for about another hour. Then we'll have a bit of a break for the afternoon, have lunch and a nap, and then we'll come back in late afternoon around 3:30 and do another workout on the water for about an hour, and then sometimes some stretching or some running as extra cardio in the end. And it changes throughout the year, so that'll be a heavy day like today. And then closer to racing, it'll be a lot more high intensity, more race pace kind of a stuff. So we do different things in different times of the year to sort of prepare ourselves the best we can. And I think that's really the key of high performance sport is planning your year to peak. For us, will be the World Championships in about 7 weeks now. So we're kind of in the heavy load of prepping for that.
Yeah. Connor?
Basically, to echo exactly what Katie said, my training is obviously slightly different from hers because she races a different distance. She races 200 and 500, where I race 1,000 meters. So there's a little bit more volume that goes into my program and a little bit less of the speed work that she does because she needs to go really fast for a very short period of time, whereas I have to go fast for a long period of time. So it's more of an aerobic power sport for me and high aerobic threshold. So a lot of volume work right now for me leading into the next 8 weeks. So very high intense, but very long, and a lot of effort goes into it, but you can see the big reward at the end. And like Katie said, we're kind of teeing it up for Milan at the end of August. So right now we're all very organized and focused on the goal at hand.
Yeah, and having the expertise and the mentorship and all that, that's going to be huge, I would dare say, right?
Absolutely. I think Katie and I both can say that we've had some great mentors along this way. And from when I first joined the team, it's obviously been, there's a lot of turnover and a lot of guys have left and a lot of guys have come. So there's a lot of difference. So now that we are the older ones on the team, we try to make sure that other people understand and like continue this good culture that we have in canoe, especially for us. Like, I think both of our teams have been very good for a very long time, and we just want to keep that going.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that may be interesting is what makes paddling so special, and special here in Dartmouth in particular, and in the clubs across the region.
Yeah, I can answer that as someone not from here. I think it's a pretty interesting perspective when I come to Halifax, and I've been coming here for 15 years or so, and the canoeing, it's part of the community here in the city. Across the city, you have like Musquodoboit and Chima and all the clubs on Lake Veinotte, and it's so interesting to come into this environment as there's canoe clubs in the GTA, but we're kind of spread out and we just meet up at regattas. But it's such a tight-knit community here, and everyone's so close to each other, and it's so cool to see how many people participate in our sport. And you can see that any day you drive by Lake Veinotte at like 4 o'clock and there's like 150 kids out there. So as it's just so special to see that, and to see how a sport, so central to nature and into our communities, like those Lake Veinotte has been around for eons. So, for that to be a part of the community and the culture in Dartmouth and around the city, I think it's super special, and it's something that's not like any other place I've ever been.
All right, tell us about the canoes themselves, Connor, and the expertise that goes into designing those and building those and all that.
Yeah, so for Katie and I, we race in canoes. There's also kayaks. So kayaks, you sit and you're double-bladed, whereas Katie and I are on one knee and we paddle on one side and we use our paddle to steer. Whereas in the kayak, they have a rudder stick in between their feet. All boats are carbon fiber Kevlar, very light. So for Katie and I, our boats are about 15 feet long, about 11 inches wide. So it's pretty narrow and pretty skinny, and people always ask me to give them some guideline of like what it's like to paddle in a boat, and I said it's like being on a unicycle with one leg. So that's the equivalent to what we do. And I think it's just such an awkward position, and the way we set up is just so awkward and unlike you do in any other sport. So I think that's what gives it the very high difficulty, makes it so tippy. And then plus, a lot of people don't understand that your paddle is actually what stabilizes you and keeps you where you are. So when they get in the boat, the first thing they think about is, my knee positioning's all weird. But if you just lean all your weight on the paddle, then you can have balance. But it's a hard thing to understand when you first start. And so the canoes they're pretty cool, and obviously full carbon fiber, super light and fast, and it's just kind of like a running joke at my canoe club. Like, we always say canoeing's like Formula One for our sport of boats because it's the fastest and we go forwards. Yeah.
Kate, do you have a particular boat that you go to, or?
Yeah, I use a Plastex Project Y medium, which for probably most listeners means pretty much nothing. But for any kid out there that's listening, that's what I use. And there's about 5 or 6 different high-end models right now that the top girls and top guys are using across the world. And there's mainly only 2 companies in aluminum plastics that are sort of the main brands that sort of, it's like kind of like Samsung versus Apple. Nobody knows who Apple is and Samsung, but it's a feud for sure. But no, it's a very Eurocentric sport, so all of our equipment and technology comes from overseas, and we just ship it over, and then when we compete in Europe, they're there for us. So it's a pretty good setup for
How
us.
about the paddles themselves?
Yeah, carbon fiber. I use a Bracha. Connor uses
I use a G Power, so it's a Polish-made paddle, different design of hers, but both paddles are super light. And honestly, paddles comparative to boats now, I think, are what we figured out is like the biggest difference in changing speeds and getting stuff. Like Katie did a lot of stiffness testing and blade size testing for her specifically, where the 200 there's no mistakes for her, whereas for mine, where there's 1,000 meters, you have a little bit more time, but like for her it's such a perfectionate race, so she wants to make sure that all her gear is completely dialed in.
What drew you to the distance that you drew, and then I'll ask Katie the same thing.
So C1000 is actually the Olympic distance for singles for men. So that's for me.
That's it. Yeah.
At the Olympics, there's only one C1 race, and it's 1,000 meters.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of just when I grew up. It's like you race 1,000 meters because it's the Olympic distance. I also race C1 500, but it's not an Olympic distance, so it won't be at the games or anything. But I still train and prepare for it. So that was my draw, was that it's the Olympic distance, and if I wanted to go to the Olympics in singles, that's the way.
Kate?
Yeah, similar to Connor, we our Olympic event is C1 200, so 200 meters, but I'll often compete in the C1 500. And like our Olympic program, it's very condensed, but if you attend a World Championships or World Cup, it's a lot similar to swimming, where there's all kinds of distances, and I'll race 500s and 1,000s and singles and doubles and fours. So we have a huge program, but our Olympic program is quite small, so you'll only see us compete in one single event at the Olympics. And with doubles event is C2 500, and Connor races that as well. So, it's a pretty cool and interesting in that sense that our sport is a lot grander than just, the one time on the Olympics every 4 years. But we train and prepare for a multitude of events. And I think that's a beautiful part of our sport, and something that it's such incredible to see so many athletes try different events and work in different crew boats. And it just helps keep the sport interesting and keeps everything exciting.
Yeah. What's kind of the age in which people kind of age out of this sport?
It depends. We had Olympic medalists last year in our sport that were in their late teens or early 20s, and we had medalists in their 40s. So you could be, it's a range of everything. I'd say the peak is typically your late 20s to early 30s is where people seem to find their stride. But you can be good at any age. It's just a matter of how long you want to stick at it. But if you see someone on a podium, or average age on the podium probably in Paris was like 28 or 29.
Right.
Across the board. So it takes a long time to get good at our sport, but it's the journey, right? It's not the destination, Connor, right?
Yeah, it's a very long haul sport. Like, if a lot of people think like, oh, I can go down and do that and figure it out, there's so much that goes into it. And honestly, my comparison is like, it's kind of like a cyclist. Like, there's lots of hours that need to go in before you just show up and be the world's best. Like, it's not where it just like a snap your fingers, like you're crazy talented. Like, there's a lot that goes into it, fitness wise and technique wise is a big thing for our sport. If you don't paddle well, it's going to be really hard down the course to get it done.
How about the mental side of it? Tell us about that, Connor.
The mentals, yeah, that's the big part of the game, because especially in racing where everybody else is doing something different, you got to hold your head, keep your nerve, and stay in your own 9.5 meter lane, right? And don't let anybody else affect you. So there's a lot of pressure that goes into it. It's similar to running track. Like, when you're in your own lane, you have all that pressure, you have all those nerves, all the adrenaline that you go through every day. And then for this one big moment, so you think about it, like for a 100-meter runner, they train their whole life for 10 seconds. For Katie, she trained her whole life for 44 seconds. That was her big thing. So being absolutely laser sharp in those 44 seconds, and for me, 3 minutes and 50 seconds or less, like just being really focused is a huge thing. So mental preparation is a big part for our sport, I think.
Yeah. Katie, what's your take on that?
I agree with Connor. I think it's, how you prepare for sports like ours that are kind of based on, it's your own individual performance or your team, your crew boat performance, and you spend hours and hours preparing for that. It's so different from like a hockey player where you get a couple 45-second shifts a period, or a soccer player where you're on the pitch for 90 minutes and you can make a mistake here or there. And in a race like ours, there's no mistakes you can make if you want to be the best. And it just takes a lot of focus and a lot of preparation to build your confidence to do that, and also to be able to execute that consistently at the top level.
What's the funding model for this? Obviously, you need money to train and all that, Connor?
Yeah, so through our NSO, we have what's called like AAP carding, which is government-funded money. So Katie and I get a check every month to be able to have the privilege to be able to do this sport and to be able to support ourselves along the way. And we have great funding from, for me specifically, talking from Nova Scotia, like the CSIA does a great job for us. They do everything they possibly can to give us great opportunities. And we have Support for Sport also that puts a little bit of money in our pocket to go, which goes a long way for any athlete at any level, which is super good. So I think for us, we're very privileged to have great people in our corner and a lot of people that are willing to help us. And like we talked about, paddling being so big in Nova Scotia, it's almost culture here, right? Like it's like hockey players and paddlers is what I think about. And a lot of my friends are hockey players, so I understand what it's like for those guys. And for us to have the same kind of like level and the same kind of privilege and respect from people is super cool.
And do you play other sports as well?
I actually started out as a hockey player, but yeah, that's how I got into paddling. Was all my friends were, instead of skating in the summer for hockey, were paddling. So my mom was like, "Go try it out," and I ended up switching when I was like 15 years old.
Well, at what age did you realize that you had some special talent?
Oh, I don't actually know. Maybe like 19, 20.
Last year?
Yeah. 19 or 20, I think, was like the really eye-opener, because I went to my first international competition in 2016, and I was 16 at the time, and I like didn't really have high expectation. It was just like, go compete, have fun, and enjoy this moment, because might never come again, right? And then it just kind of took off after that year, which ended up leading to my first Olympics in 2021 in Tokyo when I was only 21. Katie also had a good Olympics there in Tokyo.
Yeah. Katie, how about you? When did you realize that you had something special?
I think I always knew.
I was going to say Paris after C1 200.
No, I think I was always a natural athlete, so I think for me it was just finding the sport that worked the best for who I was, and had a pretty good career probably like since day one. When I reflect back, like I said, 10 years ago was my first senior worlds and I was 19, and here I am 10 years later and I'm going faster than my C2 went that year in C1. So it's always just about trying to get better and trying to be better year over year. And I think as long as you're kind of focused on that and continuously trying to find ways to improve yourself, there's always more potential, and there's no limit to what you're capable of.
Yeah, Katie's a little modest. What happened a couple weeks ago in Montreal?
I went out for breakfast. No, I'm just joking. I beat the world record in the C1 500 for the first time, which has been my goal for a fair bit of time now, but we're kind of getting close. And the goal is to be the first woman to go under 2 minutes in a C1 500, which if the wind and the water is right in Milan, then I think we'll be able to do it. So we're gearing up for that, and we'll have a few more cracks at it over the next few years, even if the stars don't align in Italy. But I think they will.
Just received an email from a Tammy Jakeman, who says she was a teaching assistant in grade 7, 8, and 9 classrooms that Connor attended in junior high, and he said way back in grade 7 that someday he was going to go to the Olympics, and she says, I love seeing his accomplishments and achieving his goals as a previous teacher over the years. So what's that? That's a nice message.
Is it the best teacher review you've gotten?
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's always good to hear. And honestly, like the support, like I said, across Nova Scotia is so great. And I know plenty of teachers that have reached out to me that have taught me along the years and have said congratulations, or you're doing great and you inspire people, and so on and so on. And I think it's just like a Nova Scotia thing at this point. Like when you're an athlete, you always want to give back to your community. So I try to do as much as I can for my canoe club and mentor guys and give them as much advice as I possibly can, or any tips or any secrets that I have to help them in their career. And I think that's just like a Nova Scotia thing, especially like Sid and Nate and all those guys. Like they give back to the community so much, and they're at the highest spectacle of the world, the most world-renowned athletes that we talk about all the time. So to have any sort of impact on any kid's life is just awesome.
Okay, we need a break. We're way over on time, so we're going to take a quick break. And Kate, great meeting you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
And Connor, great stuff, and continued best of luck to both of you. And you guys are doing an amazing job representing the province and the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be back with Ken Bagnell. All right, just a couple minutes left. Time really flies. Ken Bagnell joining me here in studio, CEO of Canadian Sport Institute, and our guests were Katie Vincent and Connor Fitzpatrick. And great kids, obviously?
Yeah, it's amazing to have these athletes in our own community. And the fact is, about half of the national team, whether they're the senior team or junior or under 23, are from Nova Scotia. So we have great athletes here, and then it's so lucky we have one of the best places in the world to train, and athletes like Katie come here, and she's been coming here for, as she said, 15 years, training and competing. So we attract people to come here. We retain our best people to train, and they really do put in the hours, summer and winter, to be the best in the world. So we're fortunate to have that group around here. And we've got such great support from the community, but also from the political level. The province has supported many events to come here to Halifax World Championships and so forth, or infrastructure development. So, Premier Houston and his team have done an amazing job for sport in general, and we're very lucky to have that in our province. So, but the canoeing is the peak. We also have obviously some other water sports that do well. Our sailors over the past month, Lou and LaFrance sisters won the gold medal at the European Championship, which is the same caliber, same athletes as the World Championship. Amazing finish for them, and they had a bronze medal at another World Cup event. We had athletes who were 20th at Worlds, Maddie Gillis and her partner Galen Richardson, number of people that competed at North American Championships as well in sailing. We've just got such a big community with sailors as well, and they're doing fantastic. In para-athletics, we had a couple shot put throwers, Carly Hiltz and Katie Pegg, who won gold medals in Paris at a Grand Prix event earlier in June. And then also Sarah Minton from Brooklyn won silver medal just over the past weekend at the Prefontaine World Cup event in the U.S. So, again, just the depth of athletes that are around has been fantastic.
Okay, Ken, time really flew. We usually have more time to chat, but we're out of time.
We'll do it next time.
You're coming in next month, right?
I will. Thank you, Todd.
Great stuff. Ken Bagnell, CEO, Canadian Sport Institute Atlantic. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandenest on the other side of the glass, the control board, doing a fine job as always. We're back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. See you then.